Hello and welcome. This is AIL TV. Tonight we have got another show. As you can see, I've got lovely flowers at the back of me here. The issue is this: we are talking about Valentine's Day. As we know, Valentine's Day, it is all about romantic, it is all about loving each other and stuff like that. But the question we are asking, do they know if it is Valentine's Day in Ethiopia? In fact, as a matter of fact, do they know it is Valentine's Day in many parts of Africa where sexual violence is used as a weapon of war and a weapon to degrade women? So in tonight's program, I have got three guests here. They're all from Ethiopia because we know that there are challenges in northern Ethiopia, which is a Tigray region. But we are not really, the discussion is not about Tigray. I have got two ladies here in the in our virtual studio. They will be telling us why is sexual violence used as a weapon of war and to degrade women all over the world. Although we happen to know that there are challenges in Ethiopia, but as I have mentioned, that sexual violence is a big problem everywhere you go. It is a worldwide. It is really a pandemic. But for this particular segment, what we are going to talk about, that's why we have got two ladies from Ethiopia. I want them to give us an account, not only two ladies, actually, I also have got Dr. Tamerat, I've got Asther Hagos, and Jerusalem Barnabas. So, gentlemen, or ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I am going to start, yes, I'm going to start with the ladies. I'm going to start with the Jerusalem Barnabas to tell us, why do you think this problem does not go away and it is being used as a weapon of war somewhere? But let us not go to war yet. We want actually to discover what is it that men have got the desire to degrade women like they do. Jerusalem?
Thank you, JJ. Thank you for inviting me and giving me this platform in the name of Valentine and in the name of Valentine and also sexual violence. These two things are different. Valentine is meant to be a day where two people who are related in love and have a romance, they pick a day, the Valentine's Day, as a day to mark their love, their romance, their relationship of good partnership. But I want to say at the same time, Valentine is one single day that can be used to symbolize love. But it doesn't mean everyone has a love relationship. In so many relationships, there is abuse, there is gender based violence, which is pervasive in society, in every society, here, even here in Britain. What makes today's Valentine or this year's Valentine is the presence and the emergence of COVID, in my opinion, because many women who are living in abusive relationship on gender-based violence-related issue at home are locked down because of COVID at home with their abusive relationship or partner, intimate partner, which means the Valentine Day itself will not be really a Valentine's Day as such because they're locked into this relationship that they do not want to be. So I want to say two things. One is those of you who have a good relationship, a loving relationship, enjoy your Valentine's Day. Use the love, for lasting relationship, for having an equal relationship, and enjoy it and have a good Valentine's Day. But for those of you living in abusive relationship, I say I'm sorry about that, but I hope the Valentine's Day would give you a courage to say enough is enough and something about your situation. but sexual violence is an equal relationship among two people that is used in society as a cultural thing, but it is pervasive in every single society. In Ethiopia, it is even worse because culturally it is accepted to live in an equal relationship between men and women. And when it comes to war, war uses sexual violence as a tool of war or as a byproduct of war, as a method of war, but it is a strategy to demonize, to terrorize women and use their body as a battleground on top of, the battle they have with weapons and so on. It is a silent weapon deliberately used as a strategy to demonize, terrorize, and degrade and humiliate women and girls. Thank you.
Okay, right. So now let me go to Esther. Esther Hagos. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
Right.
Good, good. Now, what adding to what Jerusalem Barnabas has said, what is your definition of this sexual violence? And how can we find a solution, especially in the 21st century?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for inviting me to the show. We are gearing to celebrating Valentine's Day, and Valentine's Day in many parts of the world, it inspires love and harmony. Sorry, there's an echo here. It inspires love and harmony between couples. It's a time of happy intimacy, but for many girls and women in many parts of the world, many parts of Africa that are ridden by strife, whether it's ethnic based or because of the unequal distribution of national wealth or any other man-made or natural disasters. It's a time of tragedy as it is of catastrophe as well. Um, why does sexual violence happen? It is a tool. In peaceful times, it does happen. For example, rape within the home happens in times of, for example, during the Ebola crisis in West Africa. There was a high number of teenage pregnancies because of the sexual violence perpetrated on them. Violence in general and within, outside of sexual violence as well. We are in the COVID era where couples are being, pushed to stay indoors for longer time and under very unhappy circumstances, which drives violence within the home. So it is driven by the situation, but it's also embedded in cultures, in the way that society views girls and women, in the way that during times of strife and war, the battleground moves from where the battle is onto girls and women's bodies. And so it is embedded, it is a tool, and it is condoned as we see in many parts as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, let me go to the gentleman, Dr. Tamerat.
Hi, JJ. Call me Tamerat, no doctor.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think both ladies actually made a very important point. But the only thing that is lacking for me is what's a definition, because there are several definitions as far as sexual violence is concerned.
So, no, according to you, let me put this question. Uh, you know, why is it that men have got this idea of degrading women, and it's just actually for a long time? It's only that now it is being brought to the forefront because of the wars going on, whether it's in Cameroon, whether it is in South Africa. In actual fact, South Africa has got the highest rate of rape anywhere on the African continent. Now, but also looking at my notes, I will bring them up here, that in Ethiopia, it looks like at least every one person every one woman in four, let's say on the ratio of 1 to 4, at least 3 or 2 women have experienced sexual violence, and some of it actually even results in death. So, Tamerat, I just want to know: is this a cultural thing? What is it?
I think using violence or sexual abuse as a weapon of war is disgusting. But what is important is, I think we really need to identify there are issues within within that violence, domestic violence as well. But I think before we actually proceed, the most important thing for me is, please induct me to this. The most important thing is, how do you define sexual violence? Not only in war, but in peace as well.
You might not see me here, but I believe you can hear me.
I can hear you quite clearly.
Okay, now let me go back.
I'm just putting a proposal to you.
Yes.
Say the definition.
Sorry.
Okay.
The definition is so broad.
Yes.
I think it would be nicer and neater if we can define it in such a way that we can be able to address without any perhaps maybe mixed views. Put it this way. I think it's quite important to define it so neatly so that everybody understands what we're talking about.
Yeah,
and
but
also I think that is important also, that will help us to define or to analyze or to come up with positive output at the end.
that is all good. You see, if we say we are going to define it, you see, like now we are actually having a conversation of whereby we are trying actually to look at the reasons why these things happen. The definition, it would be so academically, let me put it that way. That is like it is an academic region way of thinking. Oh, let us define this. All we are saying is this: when somebody is abusing someone, say for example, sexual violence is taking place at any level. You will find men are harassing women or raping women in the villages, and then you will also find it in the middle class people who have gone to study to university. That's what we are really talking about. What is
JJ,
that?
I'm sorry to speak over you.
Yes.
But then there is an issue here: war or domestic violence.
Can we, JJ, can I maybe
Yes.
help?
Okay. Go ahead, Jerusalem. Yes. Yes.
In terms of definition, we were talking what is the definition of gender-based violence, because if Dr. Tamerat believes gender-based violence happens and it is pervasive in society, how do we define it? It is an act of violence, basically using your gender. It acts upon you to coerce, abuse, degrade you as a person because of your gender. But when we say gender, it is disproportionately happening to women. But it doesn't mean it doesn't happen to men. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen to girls. So what we're saying when we talk about gender-based violence is it is an act of violence that happens because of your gender. So it is a violence. What is sexual violence? When you add sexual violence into it, it sounds as if it has sex, but violence has nothing to do with sex. Sexual violence has nothing to do with sex, but it uses sex for violent reason to degrade, dehumanize, coerce, and abuse, using sex to humiliate women. Whether this is at home, in the house, outside, and it happens by so many people, by the way. It doesn't necessarily happen by wife and husband. It happens to girlfriends, boyfriends. It happens. It is done, by family. It is done by acquaintances. It is done by all kinds of things, by groups. So we're saying sexual violence is not necessarily only an act of war, but at war it is systematically used to dehumanize, to terrorize, to degrade, and as a weapon, systematically as a military strategy. And it is when it is done in war, rape is involved in it, and all kinds of rape. When we say rape as well, people can use tools. They can use metals, they can use bottles, they can use all kinds of sticks or whatever, and they use sexual violence as a tool to terrorize, as a weapon to degrade, as a weapon to dehumanize, as a weapon to also change whatever it is. Say it is a religion you are against, it is used as a genocide as well, either to change the makeup of an ethnic group or to change a religion of a specific group. So at war, it has a different purpose, but it happens also daily everywhere, whether in Ethiopia, let alone Ethiopia, which is a country with a very archaic culture. Even within the Western world, sexual violence happens every day, and gender-based violence happens every day. The reason we mention gender in it is because it is disproportionately happening to the gender women. But as you know, in the world we live, we have transsexuals, we have bisexuals, we have homosexuals. So that, we have a cross range of people who would be suffering also from sexual violence and gender-based violence. It is a coercive act using sex as a weapon to terrorize, to humanize, and also to intimidate and coerce. It creates a physical impact. You could be coerced financially, physically, emotionally, in all kinds of things, using insults, degrading you, dehumanizing you, belittling you, starving you. All kinds of methods are used for gender-based violence, and society accepts it as if it is a norm.
Okay, Jerusalem, we will come back to you. I need to go back to Tamerat. Do you actually hear what she is trying to say? Because you are saying we have to define what is sexual violence. Sexual violence is sexual violence, whatever the definition that you want to put it into. So I would like you just to respond to what she has just said, without definition.
I think what the young lady said is quite right. Sexual violence is absolutely horrible. It's not acceptable. But the problem is in what context, how society sees sexual violence. We have got issues with culture, and of course also with religious issues. Gender violence, I think, is a big segment of sexual violence. But in fact, I agree also with what the narrative, with her narrative, which says it's degrading. Yes, it's degrading because it's slavery. And I take those points as very important.
So, Asther, you've been keeping quiet. You're listening. What is your take on this? So tell us what exactly you think. What is this sexual violence, and if there can be any way of actually at least reducing it, because it looks like we will never get even to defeat it. It's like a genital mutilation pandemic, Because if you go to Cameroon, they have got their own problem. You go to Uganda, have got their own problem. Africa has got its own problem, and also these mixed cultures. What is your take on this sexual violence? It is going to be Valentine's Day on Sunday. Do they know it is Valentine's Day in Ethiopia?
Thank you. I think sexual violence has been described, explained. Perhaps maybe I could expand a bit more on the intent behind it. Intent is important in every act. Sorry, there's an echo. So intent is important. All right. Whether it happens within the home or in isolated, within the community, or at a grand scale in conflict situations, usually the purpose behind it is similar. There's subduing, subjugating. There's the mixing of an ethnic or a group of a social group by sort of mixing the next generation. There's divisiveness within or sowing divisiveness within the community and creating discord and suspicion. There's again within the community creating disharmony because people who are seen, victims of rape and sexual violence are seen as having brought dishonor on the family or the community. So the consequences are wide-reaching, and of course then there's the next generation, the children that will come about as a result of this unfortunate act, and how that will define the community as a whole. And in all this, whether it's in the home, as I said, the community, or in war situations, the approach again is important. There's impunity. There's a feeling that I can do this because I have power. But I do not agree that it is beyond us. There are war rules. There are rules within the community, written or not written, and there are crimes of war and crimes within the crimes as written in the law, and there are laws as well. There are conventions, such as the Human Rights Act, for example, whether European or universal. Rape is torture and is degrading and inhumane, and it's absolute. The prohibition of degrading and inhumane and torturous acts is absolute. It cannot never be relative, and these are the tools. And of course, there are many other tools as well, including the Geneva Convention. That give us, these are the tools that we should use at all times to scrutinize what's happening within the home, scrutinize what's happening within the community and in war situations. And so it's not, I do not agree that it is beyond us, or that we're not capable of addressing and reducing and eliminating it in the end. But it does need our collective act. It does need the will of, for example, warring parties to respect human rights, to respect the rights of civilians. It necessitates the application of the law at home and in the community. That's how I see it. Yes, it is, at war, it is a war crime, and it has to be, the light has to be shone on it, and people have to be brought to be accountable. And in all this also, there's the duty bearer. Who is the duty bearer in society? It's always the government. And so we need to hold governments to account, to apply laws in peacetime as well as times of conflict and war.
So, Tamerat, now we are listening actually to the ladies, because every time when we talk about sexual violence, it looks like it is actually the women feel it more, although there is also another side. Men also suffer this kind of sexual violence. But in your opinion, what do you think that can be done? Even just to create awareness, or to educate people, because people need to be educated. They don't have to go to classroom to be educated. There needs to be a way of creating awareness and maybe creating forums to discuss this issue at any level. We can discuss it academically, we can discuss it as village people. You have to remember, as I've said, this problem here, it is at the height, at the top, it is in the middle, and it is at the bottom. So what do you think would be the solution? Because let us talk a little bit about solution here. What would be the solution you think, in your own opinion?
Yeah, my view is I don't have any scientific evidences to the effect that I don't know anything, but it's my observation of what I'm going to tell you. I think that it is good idea to actually have these extremely intelligent young people who have articulated the issue for me. But again, I have to go back to the root and say, yes, there is a difference between sexual violence and gender-based violence. It is also the case that sexual or gender-based violence is a criminal act. Right? It is recognized by law in many countries, even in Ethiopia. Or also, there is also an international dimension of that. So I still think it is. I mean, I think it is important, and it's very good that this young lady has actually articulated the issues as they told us. And personally, I'm grateful.
Salem, I'm
Can
back to
I
you.
say something on how we address it?
Sorry?
No, you are asking about how this should be addressed, as in what solutions we can bring about.
Yes, I think JJ and I have discussed yesterday the main mission of tonight's meeting is to work toward this creating an awareness. And of course, in awareness, what you need is you need a champion in the ring. I think to actually create that kind of environment, awareness is important. And in view of that, I think it's important to have this type of dialogue and discussions, and also involve people, different views, so that you can come to a sensible either argument or solution or recommendation if there is going to be a policy issue.
Thank you.
I'm not really, I don't have any expertise in this area.
Can I say
So I think
something? Can I say something here? I think any violence, because Dr. Tamerat was saying separating sexual violence and gender-based violence, they are intertwined, by the way. Any violence is a crime. Any violence is a crime. It is a punishable crime. If a man wants to be, or whatever, in a relationship, someone wants to be acting violently and attacking the person, definitely that is a crime and it is punishable. And society has to have a law that protects women or men who is in a relationship that is violent. So what we're saying is, when it happens domestically, there is a government, there is a law that stops that from happening. And women or men, because we have said clearly, it happens to women disproportionately. So because it happens to women disproportionately, women are the victims most of the time. So many hundreds of women die of gender-based violence by a violent partner, intimate partner at home. And or they have a gravely bodily harm because of violence that happens to them. So it happens mostly to women. But we're not saying it doesn't happen to men. It happens also to men. We have to take that. But whichever way happens, it is a crime. And sexual violence is also part of it. Sex is used. The word, when we see the word sex, we think it is sex. It is not a crime of passion at all. It is a crime. Sexual violence is used at war, because we mentioned war, because it is used in when the military even train, they think it is part of the rule of law is to attack women, to rape women, to degrade women, to dehumanize and terrorize women. That was part of them. You know, it was only in 1992 rape or sexual violence at war became a punishable, internationally prohibited act. And 1992 is the time internationally it was said rape is an act of war. It is a war crime. It is a crime against humanity, when it is also systematically trying to change a generation or the makeup of a community, whether it is ethnicity or religion, it becomes genocide. And there is a Rome Statute, Article 7, that states that it is a war crime, it is a crime against humanity, and it is a genocide. And it is punishable. People who perpetrated that would have to come to justice and be tried. And it has happened in Bosnia, it has happened in Rwanda, it has happened in Sierra Leone, it has happened in Liberia, it has happened in Congo. The genocide has happened in Rwanda, which we thought would not happen elsewhere. The genocide has happened in Bosnia, Herzegovina. We thought it wouldn't happen anywhere, but it is happening in Myanmar, it is happening in Tigray. That's why we thought we mentioned this as a result. But also I want to say one thing, because we're talking about Valentine. Valentine has a symbol of roses. Ethiopia is the second largest country in Africa that produces flower, roses. It is also the seventh largest country in the world that produces roses and flowers. So this symbol of passion or love or Valentine that is given to women, and Ethiopia produces this and exports it, to me, for what it is doing in Tigray, rape and sexual violence and war on women. And also when we have women ministers, women president, that should be honoring the rights of women in Ethiopia, the rights of girls in Ethiopia. They have basically surrendered in protecting women and girls in Tigray and in Ethiopia. So nobody should buy the flowers that are coming from Ethiopia, because roses are coming for Valentine's Day. And also our female ministers who are everywhere, including our president, should have condemned this act of war that is using rape and sexual violence as a tool, as a system, as a method, as a strategy to dehumanize women in Ethiopia. They should, in fact, all, in the name of Valentine's Day, they should all resign on Valentine's Day in condemnation to what is happening to Tigrayan women in Ethiopia. But I'm not saying crime, sexual violence is not happening in Ethiopia. It is happening in every part of Ethiopia, in Oromia, in Walaita, in Somalia, in every place in society it happens. As you say, JJ, it happens across the world. In Africa, it happens across the world. In Britain, especially in this COVID time, the sexual violence and gender-based violence have hit roof, because women have no place to run away from their abusive partners.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Let us hear from Asther. Asther, what you see, the I know, because I keep forgetting. I think the Dr. I think I'm not really offending you to call you doctor or Tamerat. We discussed earlier, we said, okay, so what is really, why are we discussing? You see, the thing is this, now I am very pleased because you are here. These are, you are the people that we want to hear most. Yeah. We want to create awareness. How do we go about creating awareness? We know sexual violence is pandemic. And also, one thing that I might also say, we shouldn't actually separate, we shouldn't even start saying gender, sexual violence, or whatever. Sexual violence is sexual violence to me. That's how I say it. So we can try and categorize it, but the results are the same. It traumatizes everybody who has gone through that experience. But now I want to turn to Asther. How do we create awareness? It is like people, they are not aware of what is going on. It is like it is normalized. Men can just go around and do whatever they want to do. But how do we go creating awareness? Then we will actually come to see how it is used in Tigray. Tamerat, do you want to come in before Asther?
Yeah, let me actually ask Asta and Jerusalem. Do you have any statistics?
Yes, that is happening in Tigray.
Can you produce that?
Oh,
Yes.
Asther, you can jump into that.
Hold on. Yeah, I can. I have some stats here.
Because
So
I think it is
just
better to
starting
come up
from
with
the
fact rather than anecdotal.
Okay, we have Asther is
um,
interviewing.
I was going to speak about how we go about resolving and addressing it. But just taking Dr. Tamerat's question, I would like to start with the latest information, which is from the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. I think it came out yesterday. It says, the statement says that in Mekelle, Adigrat, and Wukro, only in the last 2 months, 108 rape victims have come forward to seek medical support. Then the UN Special Advisor, that's what she's called, yeah, UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence. Sorry, there's an echo. Yeah, UN rep on representative on sexual violence in conflict, Miss Pramila Patton, that said that she was greatly concerned by serious allegations, including a high number, which then put around 800. This came from her office. Around community groups, there is a feeling. I mean, Wukro, Adigrat, and Mekelle are only 3 cities. Tigray is bigger than that, obviously. There are many parts where aid and other access is very restricted and limited, where it is happening, but not the information is not in a sort of systematic way coming out. It is happening, and people are receiving it through own networks. So at the moment, there is an upwards of 3,000 women raped number. Sorry, number. Yes, please, Dr. Tamerat, I would advise that you go onto these sites and try to find more information. If I may, can I come to how we address rape and sexual violence now? So you mentioned awareness raising. If I may, I would like to take it back a few steps to the women themselves, to the girls and women, and what's happening to them. They have been raped. They need post-rape medical care that can prevent unwanted pregnancy if they didn't want to go ahead with it, sexually transmitted diseases, and the right to decide for their future as to the pregnancy, communities get torn apart by this act. And so health support that build the psychological, physical, and social health and well-being of women and girls, resources are needed towards that. Safe and confidential and protected space is needed for victims of rape. These are shelters. In the West, they are usually known as shelters. They are safe houses. Their address is not, nobody knows the address. People cannot just go in and visit them. This happened, as we know, recently when our president visited. There was there were women, I think, in a hospital who were obviously victims of sexual violence by the military, and then for the military to accompany the president, that was really a slap in the face of these women. That was not received well at all. That should not be happening. And again, beyond that is the community healing. Healing process needs to take place for families and communities. So this is how we support victims of violence, sexual violence. In terms of awareness raising, I think awareness raising needs to be accompanied with something stronger. We're not just saying it's wrong, don't do it. We should be able to say someone did it and see what happened to them. They are behind, they are in jail, or they've lost their liberty, or they've lost their whatever. So that needs to be, this is where accountability comes into the question, into the equation, that those who do it, whether at home, in the community, or in war times, are held to account. They are held up as bad examples and, face the consequences of it. Equipping women and girls with their rights to say, this happened to me, I will go and seek advice, I will go and seek medical treatment, takes a lot. It is an act, it's a taboo in many communities, including ours. And for people to come out and say, this happened to me and I need to be supported, is a big thing. That needs to be encouraged, that needs to be supported. Female police officers, for example, in law enforcement groups that can welcome women and hear their stories, take action, and then remedial actions for the women themselves to help them to build up their lives back again.
I just want to ask just a very simple question. When Tamerat asks for statistics, that's a different story. But also I want to know, so these statistics here, these are the numbers of women or young girls who are being raped in Tigray, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
would there be also a number of women raped on the other side?
Yes,
Because
there would be. Can I come there, JJ? Thank you. And also for the sake of awareness that Dr. Tamerat said earlier, there was a news yesterday on Los Angeles Times. I'll just briefly tell you. There's two women, a young mother of two and her sister were walking in a desolate highway in Tigray, and 5 men approached them in a pickup truck. And they took them away in a hidden place, and one of them, they just took one of the sister separately and gang raped her, 15 of them, gang raped her for 8 hours ordeal. This is a statistics. It's not me talking, it is on the newspaper. But also, for the sake of awareness raising, what I want to say, JJ, is in this war of Tigray, I want Dr. Tamerat to know the Abiy government invited a foreign government, an Eritrean government, to come and invade Tigray for the sake of their own political intention and humiliate and rape women.
okay,
So,
I think
very clear.
it's all good. It's all good. But
Also, the Ethiopian army and the Amhara militias, because that's what we're talking about, statistics and women.
On Jerusalem, what we are discussing, I think the idea of bringing in foreign forces who invaded what, we all know that. But also, I would say this, we really have to be careful of what the newspapers are telling us, because some of the newspapers are actually there to create more chaos. Because from my experience,
JJ, this
yeah,
is very, and I contradict you here, because you are saying we are people who come from Tigray. We have families who live in Tigray. So if you are saying my story is written on a newspaper of, whatever, it is going to be said, oh, the West are writing it. We are telling you, people are telling us. And as our state told you that number earlier, behind the reported cases, there are 2 or 3 more unreported cases. So when we have the statistics, we have to keep in mind in every rape that has happened,
okay,
or
so
in every sexual and gender-based
okay,
violence.
just to give me a chance, let me ask one more question.
Yes.
Before the war, has there been any kind of activities involving sexual violence reported in Tigray?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Can you say that? Because I thought at the beginning, JJ, when we mentioned that gender-based and sexual violence are pervasive in every society, let alone Ethiopia, a very patriarchal society, including Tigray. In every society, even where there is law of protection in this country, it is so pervasive and it happens daily. I mentioned earlier, so many women suffer, so many men also suffer in a relationship or in whatever intimate relationship or within their family. Gender-based and sexual violence are so pervasive in society. So it means it happens in Ethiopia. It has been happening in Ethiopia. It will happen in Ethiopia until we collectively, globally, stop the continuum of gender-based violence, stop the continuum of sexual violence as if it is a disease, because it is a disease. Society has to stop it. But at the same time, when it is happening, we have to find preventative method. One of the prevention is also to educate our young children as a curriculum that it is an act of violence, that it should not happen neither at home nor at war. So I'm saying to you, JJ, it is so pervasive. But we were talking about war because at war, they use it as a system, as a strategy to attack and use women's body as a conquest, as a battleground. And we are saying it should not happen at war. Women's body should not be a conquest or a battleground. So it has to stop. But gender-based violence and sexual violence in society has to stop everywhere.
Okay, Tamerat,
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think it is interesting, but I think Jerusalem actually perhaps could have explained a little bit of by actually comparing with other nations. Areas like Yemen is quite a good example. But the fact that it is actually, we are now actually moving into a narrow environment. And also, I agree with you, JJ. The fact it is, an article is on a newspaper doesn't mean that's fact. So in order to be credible, I think there has to be a credible data which has been verified, if not verified, verifiable. So lack of that causes also difficulties in my mind. I can't accept that.
Okay, you see, in my experience, is I have seen a whole lot of things. You see, as Jerusalem said that you are from Tigray, you know what is happening there. Of course, sometimes what we need to look at, sometimes it is very difficult to separate emotions and looking at things how they are. Because if you go to balance things, you have to remember people are dying on both sides. But that one, I think I'm correct, because there is nowhere in a war which kills people on one side only. Okay, one side might be, it might have greater numbers, but all the same, people are dying. Now let us come back again to our problem. We are talking about the problem of sexual violence and creating awareness. So, say for example, here in the UK, as we have got the freedom to speak, we can actually now look. We have got our own network here where we can actually discuss things with no censorship, no nothing. So what can we actually do here, the people in the diaspora? What kind of system can we come up with? Because one thing that I see, we Africans, we have got one challenge, and also I might call it a problem. You see what is happening in Tigray? People are saying, some Africans, they don't even know what is happening because it is not on their doorstep. So when it happens in Nigeria only, then you will see Nigerians on their own on the street and really fighting on their own. But we don't come together collectively as Africans. So I am asking you now, what can we actually do? Because I have to include myself. I am an African, although I'm not from Ethiopia, but it pains me to see Africa just going to the dogs.
No, I quite agree. JJ. I think we all actually have got a painful heart. We don't want anything of that nature to happen. But then there is a big, big, big issue at the back, in the background. The driver of this is religion and culture, where we have very little input or very little control over it. But having said that, it doesn't mean that we have to stand and watch when things are going wrong.
I really want to know when you say religion and culture, because these cultures we are talking about, I don't see there is anywhere in the culture that says go and antagonize a woman. Look, you see, for me, women are our daughters, women are our mothers, women are our wives. So where do we get this primitive idea of not treating them as human beings, as we should be treated? So
As
this
you
is,
know,
yes.
as you know, the role of a woman is in some of our society is less than a man. And although it is not right, it is not true, but that kind of mindset exists.
Our mind exists. Okay, I think let me see. Oh, we have got the conversation is getting interesting. We were late 10 minutes. I'm going to add another 10 minutes to cover up because the hour is gone. Now, Jerusalem, I just want to come to you because, as I said, are we able to separate emotions and looking at things as how they are? Do you think so?
Can I say something? I don't know if I sounded emotional because you were questioning that the statistics that is coming is as if it is something fabricated. One thing I want to tell you, as a woman myself, as an Ethiopian myself, I used to call, and as a Tigrayan, integrity is part of something I stand for. And I want to say, anywhere in Ethiopia or anywhere in the world, whether it is Yemen, Syria, whether it is Iraq, Afghanistan, whether it is Rwanda or Liberia or Congo, everywhere that happens, act of violence is violence. It is wrong, it has to stop. It annoys me, it upsets me because I'm a woman. I feel women are an honor and a pillar of society. Women are our mothers, our sisters, and they honor a community. When we attack women, we are attacking society. That is why, maybe because it is so close to my skin as a woman, I might sound emotional, but I'm also talking logically. I'm also saying, every information we talk in any discussion, everything I bring, I do not want myself to be discredited by saying something that is not right. That is why sometimes you have to bring evidence. Collecting evidence when rape happens is the most difficult thing, as you would know, because rape doesn't happen, when people are watching. In fact, when people are watching it happened, one military commander of Ethiopian army spoke. You might have seen it, Dr. Tamerat, I don't know. He said, how could they do that in the middle of Mekele by all the soldiers raping women? This is an Ethiopian army saying it blatantly, openly. Okay, it is okay when it happens at war, but in the middle of town, this happening, women being raped. So, it makes you emotional because you are seeing your sister, your auntie, your daughter being raped by people who this woman or this girl doesn't know. It is an attack. It is a violation of a human right, a woman's right, a girl's right, a child's right. So it is a very emotive subject. So there is no way people would not be upset. I'm not upset because it happened to a Tigrayan woman. Of course, it upsets me, but I'm also upset if it happens to anyone. So I stand for anyone, anywhere that suffers rape and sexual violence, whether it is at war, because when it is war, it is destructive. It has destroyed women, using them as a what do you call it, as a weapon of whatever destruction. It upsets you because all these women have now fled. There is no community looking and caring for children, caring for elderly, caring for family. So it is a very emotive subject for someone to be attached and getting upset, because the whole topic of violence is upsetting. But to anyone across the board, across the world. That's why I said earlier, the continuum of violence at war, as rape used as a strategy of war, has to stop globally. And we have a law internationally that says rape at war is a war crime. It is crime against humanity. It is a punishable act. And Ms. Pramila Patton has spoken about that, as they have mentioned earlier. So as you say, JJ, it does not matter where it happens. I'm being emotional. I cannot stop being emotional because it is a woman's body being used as a conquest, as a battleground. It is my mother, it is my sister, it is my daughter, anyone, whether it happens to a Yemeni woman, a Yemeni girl, or it happens to an Afghanistan woman or Afghanistan girl, it upsets me because it is wrong, it is violation. That's why I'm saying it has to stop. The continuum of violence against women has to stop everywhere, by law, by education. But because we're talking about war, Asther has mentioned earlier that all these women who have been raped will be impregnated, which means they will have children that they didn't want it. They will have physical damage. They have psychological damage. They will have disease, sexual transmitted infection, whether it is chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, HIV, because they are deliberately doing it when they come as a gang rape or things. People who are infected wants to infect women. So all this is wrong. It is a very emotive subject for someone not to be upset. It is upsetting. That's why I was upset.
Thank you, Jerusalem. Now, let us hear from Asther. Asther, what do you think? It's the same question. Jerusalem has actually done a very good job to explain, because I can see here in the comments people already they are kind of expressing their frustration. They are saying, I am shameful because I have asked the question about emotions. So I can understand that. But as I said, we are here, we don't take sides. We are not supporting any side at all. But I am a concerned African. When I see things happening in that area, you have to remember that whatever is affecting Africans in Africa it is actually affecting us. So it doesn't matter whether you are from Ethiopia, it doesn't matter whether you are from Cameroon or Nigeria. I can guarantee you, say for example, today if the Ethiopian airline it has to be stopped working, you are going to see a whole lot of Africans suffering. They won't travel because they use Ethiopian airline. You see, that's how we see it. We don't see it like, say for example, I always telling my friend, if I am walking on the street, I would not differentiate who is Amhara, who is Tigray, or who is Oromo. To me, I see them as Ethiopians. So for those of you who are sending these comments of frustrations, I can understand, and I can actually take it. So Asther, let us hear from you.
I would like to start with I would like to start by setting the record straight. There was something about the number I had mentioned earlier, the 108. Actually, that was the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, and they got the information from health professionals. So I just wanted to make that to clear that it did come from a credible source. As I understand, your question was, what can we do about it? We are here. We're in the West. I think Dr. Tamerat might be in the US. We are here in the UK. We see how systems work. We see that there are laws against perpetrators of violence. As Jerusalem said, it's not happening here. Actually, a few years back, I can't remember the exact statistics, but there was a number, and I cannot remember if it was 4 or 8 or 2 or 1, but that per week, this number of women were being killed or harmed by a current or ex-boyfriend or partner or husband. So it is a big number. It is a big issue. So it's not something that's reserved for people in developing countries in other parts of the world. But there are laws to deal with perpetrators, and there are systems to support the victims of such heinous acts. And what can we do? We here, we benefit from these laws, from this support, or other sisters and others benefit from it. But we see how it's developed. We're part of it as activists. We are also activists in our countries, in other places where we work, whether it's the Middle East or other parts of Africa. And so, my suggestion or my answer to your question would be, we don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. There are ways. There are ways to develop systems of support, laws to limit and bring to heel those perpetrators, and we can support the development of such systems and laws in our countries of origin, whether Ethiopia or places where we work in other parts as well. The other thing we should do is, as Tamerat mentioned, there's religion, there's culture, tradition, not always, or may not always be interpreted in the spirit that they were conceived or in the spirit that they were set up to begin with. So we need to bring that back. Law, rights are human rights. Women's rights are human rights. They apply to women in Latin America, the North Pole, and in Ethiopia and other parts in the UK. We need to make sure those laws, and many countries actually have really lovely, amazing laws. The problem is their interpretation, their application, and who's monitoring that. Civil society organizations are the ones closer to people. We can support the development and the strengthening of civil, especially women's civil society organizations. We can encourage and empower people not to hide it it's violence, it's rape, it's domestic violence. We cannot hide it and sort of cover it in fluffy language. It's not love, it's not affection, it's not the projection of this. It's cruel and it's inhuman, and we need to call it by name. And so there are ways we can support, and sort of we need we need to look beyond. Wars do not last forever. Those who instigated wars will go away, and communities will remain. Communities who have been raped, communities who have been, on the side of the killer, the side of the victim, the perpetrator, and you need to look beyond that. That support civic society organizations to monitor what the government does, and support the establishment of support systems and laws, and policies and procedures that support women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Tamerat, you've got 1 minute to say what you think and what kind of solutions do we have to come up with, and then we progress, and then we will end up with we will come back to Asther 1 minute, and then Jerusalem 1 minute. So Tamerat, 1 minute.
I think personally I've learned a lot from these guys. They are quite intelligent and have done their job or their work. I think the symbol of love and peace is appropriate. And we need to, any violence, whether it is sexual or domestic, is a heinous act, therefore it's criminal. I think we have to support that principle and band together in the pursuit of that. The other thing I would suggest is, I think, although the topic is wide and most importantly broad, perhaps in the future we can define more in a narrow way, not narrow way, but in manageable chunk, both the importance of this discussion and how that actually fits into the broader context. I think that's quite important. But the most important thing was what has been said tonight is violence, particularly violence against women or gender violence, is absolutely unacceptable and has to be seen in that manner, in that eye.
Asther.
I would say, in short, that violence against women is violence against society. If a woman complains that she is at the receiving end of violence, she will go to court, and court of justice. It's a third party who would adjudicate and say this is what happened, and give the due sentence to whoever committed it. It's the same in war situations. There needs to be an opening. There needs to be third party investigators inquiry into what's happening in areas of violence, in areas of war and conflict, because they usually happen away from the scrutiny, from the eyes of the world and the wider community or the wider society. In smaller cases, but in wider scale, at a wider scale, it happens away from the world, and it needs, when we say as a community that access is needed, that third party third party investigation, independent investigation is needed. There's a reason for it. Those who perpetrate it will not say we did it. And those who are at the receiving end of it are not always empowered to say this happened to me, or when they do, they're not believed. So that needs to happen, whether it's at home or at war. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerusalem.
Well, we started with Valentine and Ethiopia. So I have to say again back, I would like to take this opportunity to ask our female ministers in Ethiopia, in the name of Valentine's Day, they should condemn and also resign from their position in condemnation to what is happening to women across Tigray. And also, they should allow humanitarian aid to come to Tigray, and they should allow, because people are starving and dying, whether it is man or a woman. On top of that, the women and girls are going through violence. So we are asking, not only we want the Eritrean army to leave Tigray, we want the Ethiopian army to stop the war, we want not only the war to stop, but also for all kinds of basic facilities to start. We want the war to stop. We want also justice to start. For the justice to start, the female president has to set an example to bring justice to women of Tigray and to women of Ethiopia. And I want to say to Dr. Tamerat, I do not condone any kind of violence in any part of Ethiopia, let alone Ethiopia that I called my country in the past. In any part of the world, violence is wrong against women or against anybody else, but because it happens to women, it has to stop. We have to change and alter the people's thinking that violence against women is not right. It is not cool at all. So the education system has to reinforce a mechanism to educate people, and governments have to adhere to international law because they contravene the international law. You know, there is a law, convention for human rights, for women's rights, for children's rights. They have to comply and adhere to those laws, and they have to stop the war in Tigray. They have to allow humanitarian aid, unfettered access to international community to come and see. Then you will see the statistics you were talking about what is happening, how many were destroyed, how many were raped, how many were killed, and all the statistics will come out. But we want justice. In the name of Valentine's Day, I want to say justice. The justice is, do not buy Ethiopian flowers for Valentine's Day, because Ethiopia produces and exports Valentine's Day red roses, because red roses are not happening to Ethiopian women, to Tigrayan women, so don't buy. I am saying boycott Ethiopian red roses and also condemn what is happening in Tigray. To all of you who are watching this, condemn the rape that is happening in Tigray, the starvation that is happening in Tigray, the war that is happening in Tigray. We want all armies, Eritrean army, Ethiopian army, to leave Tigray, and Tigray to have a reinstated government.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tamerat. Thank you, Asther, and thank you, Jerusalem. So,
thank you for inviting and giving us this platform.
Okay. Yes. Actually, you know what? I am so glad that you guys, you are discussing issues in a civil manner. No one is. I always say this. Just because I do not agree with you or I disagree with you, it does not mean that I'm your enemy or I will become your enemy. No. It means that we see things differently. Yeah, I'm here, I can see we are discussing a very, very difficult issue. That one is understandable. So, viewers, for those who are frustrated with my questions that I have put to Jerusalem or to Asther or to Tamerat, it is my job to ask questions. I read, I go and find things that are relevant, and that's what I use. But we are here to give a platform to anyone who has got anything to say. We would like to speak to one another and find solutions, because we want to call ourselves, we are educated, we live in the West. Yes, so let us show those people who are actually fighting without reasoning. We know we can talk. Europe has fought so many wars until they got tired. Now they talk. But unfortunately, Africa, we are still in that age whereby if I disagree with you, I'm your enemy. If I don't agree with you, it is the same. You see me as your enemy and I see you as my enemy. No, we are not intending to do that. Here at AIL TV, we are trying to create a platform where anyone can come and say whatever they want to say. They can come on the channel. If you are a musician, you can come and perform. If you have got something to sell, come and sell it. That is our intention. Let me thank you again, Jerusalem, Asther, and Tamerat. It's really very exciting just to see African women talking sense. You see, that's what I like. Talking
Can I say
sense.
something before
Yes,
you go?
please. Yes. We are closing. Say something before we go.
Thank you very much for for being such a fantastic chairing the meeting and directing the debate. But may I suggest next time, I think we should include economic violence, how it affects these women.
Now, next week, we are going to discuss the impact of war, how it is actually impacting our economy, the social and economic empowerment. We should be, you see, the more we fight, the more we lose everywhere. And when we fight, somebody else outside gains more. I don't want to talk so much about that. As you know, Africa has got everything. Before I leave, when we fight, someone else gains. 78% of electronic cars are running on substances that are dug in from the soil from Africa, when Africa do not even have a road to run their cars. Now think about that. We should actually now think solutions. Let us think about how we can coexist together. Africa does not need another Rwanda. You have to remember almost 1 million people died in 1 week. Now that is really, really, really bad. Anyway, I'm very happy for all the viewers who have sent in your, I can see, look, if I show you here, these are the people who have been watching your program. So, people are listening. And I would like you to come again. So this time, we might even have an international observer for this very issue we are talking about. So for those of you who want to celebrate Valentine, go ahead. But if you think there is no need to celebrate Valentine, by the way, Valentine is not an African thing, It was imposed on us. We borrow stuff. Valentine is a commercial venture. So, and on that note, I must say ciao.
It should be the spirit of love. So we should finish it with the spirit of love to humanity, with the spirit of love to women, to our mothers, to our sisters, to our daughters. And we should celebrate it as a day to respect women across the 365 days, but particularly that day to take it as a symbol of honor to women. And that's how I want to see it. Thank you.
I've got a producer. I need to thank Alex for actually bringing you all together. And there are other people who are actually working in the background. I am here actually standing in for David Otto. This is security update. It is normally presented by David Otto. He is in Abuja tonight. He had a program. I think it was on TRT or Al Jazeera, one of the two stations. I am basically I present other things. But I am very happy to have you tonight. And until next time, Ciao.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Thank you.